Because I know you were listening attentively. That was good.
Yeah. No, I think I'm still very basic in a learning level because I'm basically I watched your videos
Oh,
and
good. You've already
know
watched them.
more
Good.
about it, but I don't think I have the knowledge that
Yeah.
is enough to construct a question or
Gotcha. But what do
yeah.
you? What's your name?
My name's Ryan.
Ryan.
Yeah.
Do you believe there is a God?
No, I don't have any religion right
Yeah.
now.
Yeah. No, no. I don't care about if you have a religion. I'm saying in your heart, Ryan, do you think this world was created from nothing? It just evolved, or do you think there was a creator? Like, just what do you think?
I think um, I've heard your arguments
Yeah.
before, and
Yeah, just discussions. Yeah.
yeah, and I think the thing to me is I don't really care if
Right.
there's a God or no.
Okay.
Like there might be, there might not be,
Yeah.
but I don't really bother about it.
But think about it, right? If there is a God and you are supposed to be worshiping God, and then you die and find out that you were supposed to, wouldn't that kind of suck?
Like, I, if there's a God,
Right.
I'm not sure what I'm missing out on.
Okay.
If there's not,
Let me tell you, right? For example, if somebody asks you, Ryan, is abortion good or bad? What do you think?
I think I'll based on my knowledge that I gained throughout my years and my experience
Yeah.
to construct a framework of thinking that is what I believe is true.
No, no. Abortion. What do you think? Is it good or bad?
I think it really depends on the context of the situation. Like if the
Right.
abortion is due to a rape or
No, no. What if the woman gets pregnant? She's like, I don't want to be pregnant. I want to abort it.
Um, I think yes.
Really?
It's okay.
It's okay
But
to kill a
I
baby?
don't have like a really have a thought on it.
Well, exactly. So there's the point, right? That when you have the guidance from the Creator, then you know right from wrong. You don't have to come up with your own thoughts for everything, right? Because you might think, yes, it's okay. Somebody else might say, that's a human baby you're killing for no reason. You know, you're seeing an aborted fetus, it's like a baby, right? They may say that's wrong. So now this is the problem. Is it wrong or is it right? We don't know, right? So here, when we have divine guidance, we go back to that divine guidance, and now we know right from wrong. In your life, for example, right? What do you prioritize? Family, money, community, your own pleasure?
I think I prioritize. I think in general happiness.
Right?
Say,
But would you prioritize your happiness above your family's?
you know.
So you would prioritize their happiness above your own? Like,
I think their happiness is part of mine. So
right? But what if something makes you happy and they don't like it? Or something that makes them happy, but then you're unhappy with it, right? So you see, in life, we need guidance. Otherwise, like for example, why do you have a father and a mother to guide, right? Why is the natural system that a parent helps the child know right from wrong? Like, I mean, you're too young, but if you have a child and your child's going towards a fireplace, you go and you grab the child, no, don't touch that, it's hot, right? It's not the child can't be like, I want to make my own decisions, right? So that's how humanity is nowadays. Everybody thinks that they can make their own right and wrong. But the reality is that Allah, the Creator above, created us. We didn't come by ourselves. And He gives us guidance. And we need that guidance in our life. So if you had Islam in your life, you would have that guidance, you would have that structure. Let me just give you an example. And I'm going to be real, Ryan, right? Your name's Ryan? I'm going to be real blunt with you, because I like you, right? I see you as an honest person. Like me, myself, I was caught up in gangs, right? And I was caught up in, my story is kind of crazy. You've seen some of the videos, I don't know if you've seen the story, right? At that time, I didn't understand right from wrong. I thought if I rob some rich drug dealer and kill him, so what? He's a drug dealer. I take that money and maybe I'll give a little bit to the poor. I'm a good guy, right? But obviously you realize killing people and robbing them is not right, right? But now when I came to Islam, then I got that guidance. No, instead of killing that drug dealer, maybe I'll go advise him. Maybe I'll try to get him to leave that life. But it's not okay to just kill and rob him and take his money, right? So now, as a society today, we've also divided, right?
Yeah.
Some people think abortion is a great thing. It's a woman's right. Even if she's 9 months pregnant, she can abort her baby. Some people say, no. As soon as she gets pregnant, she cannot, even if she was raped, right? Now you have the spectrum, right? So how will we know? Divine guidance. Otherwise, everybody has their own idea. Death penalty, is it good or bad? Immigration, is it good or bad? Everybody, if we don't have guidance, we're always just going to be fighting about it. When we have divine guidance, we say, okay, it's not about me and you. Our Creator knows us best. What do you do? Are you go to school?
I go to school, yes.
What are you studying?
Economics.
Economics, excellent, right? Now, when you look at economic models, right, you understand how economy works. You understand supply and demand. You understand the bull market and what do you call the other one? When bull goes up, what goes down? The bear market, right? I don't, right? I took some economic classes, but I don't, right? So now, if you come up with a new economic model of how to help the economy of a country, and you tell me, hey, I have this economic plan that's going to take every country out of recession and global economy is going to grow and it's going to be great. Now, would you then send explanations how to implement it? Or would you just be like, here's the printout, go do whatever you want?
I think, yeah, I'll do explanation.
Of course, because you developed the plan, right? You know it best. I don't know economy. I wouldn't even know what you're talking about. So now our Creator is not going to leave us without guidance either. He's going to tell us, look, you may not know that you need it, but you need the guidance. You need to know whether you should drink alcohol or not, whether you should eat pork or not, whether you should kill or not, whether you should steal or not. Just like I was telling you about myself, I needed that guidance. So don't you think that would be something beneficial in your life, that structure and guidance from a Creator?
I think my first thought was from you is because you said we have fathers and mothers for our guidance.
Yes.
The thing is, I think what resembles is we see there are many bad parents.
Yeah, of course.
There is bad parenting, and I'm not sure that I can act because I'm an adult now, obviously.
You are.
If I can choose a parenting, if that is the right parenting, because we see there are different, like in religion, there are different parenting styles and different religions that people believe in.
Sure.
How do I know if this parenting style or this parent is good for my guidance?
Perfect, good question. So now, take it back to, you made a very good point, right? Not all parents are good parents. Not all religious beliefs are correct. So how do you choose the right one, right? But before we go there, let's take that step that, okay, we already agreed now that we do need guidance, right? We're good on that one, right? That we do need that divine guidance in our life. Now the question gets to be, which one is correct, right? Now,
I think before we're moving on to that part,
okay.
I believe that if we accept a guidance,
okay.
does it mean that because I read a lot of existentialism philosophy,
good.
So does it make us like we don't have any thoughtful action to be responsible to?
No, of course we do. So this is why I'm saying let's get to which is the right method, because you will then see that in Islam we believe in responsibility. So let's talk about those parenting models or religions now, right?
Okay.
But I just don't want to go backwards. So we do agree that there is a need for it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good, Ryan, you're making progress, all right? Now, in Christianity, the idea is that Jesus died for your sins, salvation is free, it's a gift, right? Meaning your deeds mean nothing, right? Jesus died, all your sins are on him, right? Deeds don't get you salvation, it's a grace, that's what they say, right? Does that make sense to you? That you as a person, as Ryan, are not held accountable for your deeds? That some other innocent person is killed and all of our murderers and rapists, all their sins are on them. And just because they accept Jesus, they get to heaven free of charge. That doesn't make sense, right? So that parenting model doesn't make sense. Good, right? Now, there is a parenting model of Hinduism, right? That believes that people die and come back as monkeys and as apes and they're reincarnated. And they worship things like rats and they worship monkeys, right? They have this belief in mythology being real that they still think is mythology, right? Like sometimes they'll tell you Krishna is a myth and then they'll tell you he's God, right? Then they'll say Ram is a myth and then they'll say he's God. Some say no, he's just a fabrication. Some say no, we worship him, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Right? It doesn't make sense, right? Because either it's real or it's a myth, right? So that parenting model doesn't make sense, right? Then there's Judaism that believes there's a chosen people, that just by their DNA, they're God's people, that they are better than others because God chose them. So just because they're born out of a certain womb, they're better than somebody like you, right? Does that make sense?
No.
It doesn't, right? In Islam, we have a belief that everybody's equal. Me, you, him, black, white, Asian, doesn't matter. What matters is how you live, right? Just because you're a Muslim doesn't mean that that's it, you can do anything you want and every sin is just going to be thrown on somebody else. No, even though I'm a Muslim, I know I'm going to paradise, but I have to live a good life. I have to not sin. I have to be held accountable for my deeds. I believe as a Muslim that there is a day of judgment. Even if you murder somebody and you don't get caught in this world, on the day of judgment, Allah will ask you, Ryan, why'd you murder him? Right? So that makes sense, right? Right? So that parenting model, that religion makes sense. It hits you right here that, yeah, that makes sense. That there is a creator, but that doesn't mean that just because I believe in the creator, I can do whatever I want. No, I have to live a good life. Allah tells in the Quran, wal asr. Allah takes an oath by time. Innal insana lafi khusr. It's from the Quran itself. That mankind is in loss. You look at people, they're caught up in materialism, in self-indulging fetishes. You know, look at the world today. Illa alladina. Now who's going to be saved from that? Illa alladina amanu. You have to believe, right? You can't just be like, oh, I'm going to give charity just because I want to make myself feel better. No, I do it for Allah. I do it to help the poor. I don't just do it to show off, you know, oh, look, this guy gave $1 million check. No, I do it for the right. I have iman, right? وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ. See, that's not enough. Oh, I believe in Jesus, going to heaven. No, no. You need to do good deeds, right? وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْحَقِّ. And then you call people towards good. If you see somebody beating up an old lady, you say, hey, stop that. That's wrong. Don't do that. If you see somebody in need, you say, hey, let's go help them, right? وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالصَّبْرِ. And then you call towards patience. You know, when hardships come, you're patient and you call towards. So you see, that model makes sense, right? That's the kind of guidance you need in your life. That's what will improve you and make you a better version of who you are today. Make sense?
Yeah, I think my point of view is that on the morality perspective, I do agree that guidance is needed.
I agree.
It's very beneficial to the society in a whole and
a person individually. Yeah. Excellent, good.
But for the meaning of life, I think that what we should do in our life that makes it meaningful.
Good.
Is it not down to the subjective experience and subjective thought rather than the objective?
I would say no, and let me explain how, right? When I ask you, Ryan, if somebody spends the rest of their life helping the poor and helping the needy and going out to third world countries where there's war and famine and helping them, do you feel that they have fulfilled their objective in life? Have they done something good with their life? I'm assuming you're going to say yes, right?
I mean, if that's what they planned and they have achieved it, I think yes.
Okay.
Yes.
But somebody else may think that what gives them satisfaction is to bankrupt countries and bankrupt people and take over areas and bomb the hell out of them, and they feel that makes them whole, right?
I think that touches on the morality part because we agreed on the morality part, right?
Right.
And those actions is violating what we agreed on, which is the morality.
Exactly. So when you're violating what we agreed on, then that can't be the purpose of life.
Yeah.
So how do we know the purpose of life? Allah gives us that in the Quran, right? Instead of us coming up with our own, we go back to our creator, the one who manufactured us, right? The one who designed us, the one who made us. He says, مَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. I did not create the jinn, another creation, or mankind, except to worship me. Worshipping Allah is not just praying, right? But like I said, when you're giving to the needy, that's a worship, right? When you're helping your family, that's a worship. By living your life by that moral code that the Creator designed us for, that is fulfilling the purpose of your life, because that's what the Creator made us for. Let me give you an easier example, right? See if it makes sense to you. When they design and manufacture a car, what's the purpose of a car?
To drive.
To drive, to get you from one place to the other, right? If there's a car that has AI and it thinks that my purpose is to grow plants, right? It can think that, but that's not what it was made for. It will never function well under that, right? Its functionality is what its designer created it for.
Yes, I think that's the main part that I want to discuss.
Yes.
And I am not sure on.
Good.
Because I think that really resembles on what existentialism is saying.
Sure.
Is that, so like for a car that you mentioned, the designer designed it for
driving.
For driving, yes.
Good.
But just like What? How do I say it? Let me.
So for example, that car, if it drives itself or a driver drives it into the water, and it just sinks, right? Because it's not designed as a boat, right?
I think
So it may think that's its purpose, but it's not, and that's why it sinks. Like today in the world, people may think my purpose is just pleasing myself, and they start doing drugs, and they start smoking crack, and start doing heroin, and they destroy themselves, right? So that's because they're not fulfilling the purpose their creator designed them for. Does that make sense?
Yes, that makes sense.
Good.
But I think our main conflict is that you believe that before we are born, before
Yes.
we exist,
Yes.
we already have a functionality and a reason that's
Okay.
why we are born and created, right?
Yes.
And my point of view is that we first exist,
Okay.
and then we given our meaning by ourselves,
Okay.
rather than
But who made us?
created. I.
you
Because
go.
I don't have a religion myself.
No, I'm not
But,
talking about religion.
but-
I'm talking about your belief, Ryan.
Yeah.
Do you think you evolved from nothing?
No. Well, let's say there's a God.
Okay.
Does it mean I agree on the morality code and the moral
Okay.
code?
But do you agree there is a God? Because that's an important
yeah,
step.
let's say there's a God.
Okay, if there is a God, then don't you think that God would know better what our purpose is than us?
Yeah,
Right?
that-
because
yeah, that
because
makes sense.
that makes sense, right? So it's not an issue of debate of whether I figure out or you figure out. The issue is that once we agree that there is a God, that He did create us, and then when that God who created us tells us that before you were born, I already gave you a function, then it's not up for us to debate, right?
Yeah, I get what you're saying, and
Yeah,
that's the
good.
reason why I can't believe there's a God.
Okay.
You see me? Because if we go on the route that we first based on there is a God, then
Okay.
that's the results that
I
we have
agree.
just said.
But we
that's
already
the
agreed earlier.
Yeah, but that's the reason why it, in turn, that makes me can't believe there's a God, because I believe the thing that.
But that's a problem, right? Because what you're doing is you're coming up with your own philosophy and then wanting to fit reality to it. But it's the opposite. Because if you don't believe there is a God, then the question would come back to, where'd you come from? Did you make the universe? Did you make this ozone layer? Did you make the functionality in your body? Did you make the white blood cells? Did you make your kidney? Did you make your liver? Did you make your heart? Did you make your brain? Did you make your DNA?
Yeah, I
You
get what
didn't.
you mean, yeah.
So if there is a God, then we can't go back and say, I can't believe in a God. Then you have to say, okay, there is a God. Let me go find out what God wants from me. Make sense, Ryan?
Yeah, makes sense.
You ready to be Muslim, Ryan? You're there, man. You're there, right?
Can I take a picture?
Sure. But we're going to do your Shahada first, man.
What's the
You're
shahada?
Muslim. You said it makes sense, right?
Yeah. What's the shahada?
Shahada is your declaration of being a Muslim.
It's a testimony of faith.
Okay, we agreed there is a God, right?
Yeah.
If there is a God, and we'll take a picture for sure, don't worry, right? If there is a God, and we agreed there is now, that makes sense, then would you believe that anything other than the one true God should be worshipped? Right? If there is a God that we agreed to, that there is, should I go worship that, I don't know, that flag or that statue or that monkey there, right?
The problem is, okay, if there is a God,
Yeah.
I still can't decide which is the God.
I got you.
Because-
I told you we'll take you there, right? First, we've agreed that it does make sense there's a God.
Yeah.
I don't want to go back
Yeah,
to
yeah,
that, so
yeah.
we're good on that. Okay.
Let's agree on that.
Now the question is, who's the true God, right? So there's one idea that Jesus is God. A man who slept, ate, got tempted by the devil, that prayed to a God. Does it make sense that God would pray to a God?
Is it like Jesus is a part of God, right?
Okay,
In
so
Christianity,
think
right?
about it. If Jesus is a part of God, who was he praying to?
I don't know.
Yeah, a good question, right? If Jesus is a part of God, then as being a part of God, wouldn't he know everything? Yeah? And the Bible tells us Jesus didn't know the hour. Right? So that self-contradicts. That doesn't make sense. Right? Do you think God or a part of God should be killed for the sins of mankind? That doesn't make sense, right? Like you said, we should be accountable for our own actions. Right? So that concept of God doesn't make sense. Right? We good? Okay. Now there's another concept of God. Let's take Hinduism, right? That God becomes like a blue guy named Ram who becomes Avatar and then can't defend his wife Sita, and then he becomes as Shiva, and then he comes back as another god, and then one of the gods kills another god, and then he makes a god out of the dirt of, or the female god makes a person out of the dirt of her body, and then he puts an elephant head on it and makes another god. Does that make sense?
I haven't read anything on
All
Hinduism.
right.
So
I know, but I'm just saying the base concept of these multiple gods, or God coming back in different forms, unable to do things that even a human can, like defend his wife Sita, would that kind of a thing make sense? It doesn't. Okay. In Islam, we believe there is one God. We don't say it's a man. We don't say it's a woman. We don't say it's a monkey. We say it's the one above, unimaginable, creator of the universe, right? One who gives you that guidance to know right from wrong, right? The one who brought you here today, the one that gave you life. We don't say that he looks like a purple guy or a guy on a cross. None of that nonsense. A belief in such a greater, higher power, which is nothing like him. Laysa kamithlihi shay, right? That same God sent all the prophets. Because you look at all the messages, they were close. Abraham, Moses, Jesus, Muhammad, peace be upon him. Their message was close. So we believe that was the same God instead of there being separate. Does that make sense? That makes sense, right? Yeah. A God who sent a book like the Quran, which we're going to give you today, that a man named Muhammad who couldn't read or write, he was able to profess without even the ability, right? How can a man who can't read or write come such a beautiful book that nobody till today has been able to match it, right? A man, and I'm going to give you a video on this if you haven't seen it, who in front of the people split the moon and made it come back together. Can a human do that without the power of God behind him? No. So that makes sense. That is the true God, right? Now you know which one. Let's do it. You ready?
No, I'm not ready.
Why not? Why not? What's keeping you back? Look, you went from not believing to believing there's a God. We went through every single idea of God, that basics, right? And you've come to the conclusion that the only one that makes sense is Islam. So what's stopping you?
Well, I mean,
Brothers and sisters, I to answer this, Brother Ryan.
Go ahead.
I think there are still many questions in my
like
head.
What?
That I can't construct right now.
Okay, so I'll tell you what. Look, I'm a student of knowledge myself. I've been studying Islam since the mid-90s. Since 1995, I started taking my first Islamic class, right? You're going to have questions. We got brothers with answers. We got scholars. If they don't know, we go to their scholars, right? No problem. But let's agree that there is a God, which we've already agreed to. And let's agree that that one Allah, the one God, nothing else should be worshipped except that one God. We agree on that?
Yes.
Okay. And let's agree that that Allah sent prophets as guides. Moses, Jesus, Abraham, Muhammad, peace be upon them. These are servants and messengers of God. They're not gods themselves. Agreed?
I don't have the knowledge to answer that. Yeah,
No. So let's talk about it, right? Do you think Muhammad, peace be upon him, was a god?
I don't know anything from.
You don't know about Muhammad, peace be upon him?
I know Muhammad, but
Okay.
I don't have like a.
No, but in your belief, Ryan, as we just went through this whole thing, would he fit the criteria of being God? Did he know everything? No, right? Can he do everything? No, right? God can. Did Jesus know everything? No. Can he do everything? No, except by the will of the Father, the God above, right? Did Moses know everything? No. Did Abraham know everything? No. So they're not gods. They're servants of God, but they did bring a message, right? They told the people, hey, don't worship idols, right? So you agree those are messengers, not gods, right?
Yeah.
That makes sense. So that is what makes you a Muslim. You testify saying, I bear witness that there is nothing that should be worshipped except one God above. And I bear witness that Muhammad, Jesus, Abraham, those are all servants and messengers of God. But that made sense to you already. Right?
Yeah.
So let's do it, bro. No time like the present. What would delaying it benefit? Like, what if you die tomorrow and you don't fulfill the purpose of your life, recognizing your Creator?
I think it's fundamental that I still can't accept the fact that my life was given a meaning before I exist.
Right, but okay. So let's take it back to that. We're gonna clear that up, and then you're becoming Muslim. All right? If we clear that up.
Okay.
All right. So let's take it back to. We agree there is a God, right? And if there is a God, and that God tells you that I created you with functionality, right? I created you to recognize me and worship me. I created you for this system, life and death, to see which one of you does the best deeds. So when the God that created us is telling us why we were created, how can we doubt it?
Because I don't think even there's a creator, it does mean that our presence is given a meaning.
Right.
I don't think that.
But if that creator tells you it is, then see, it's not about what I think the creator should or shouldn't do or does not. It's like I'll give you an example, right? You have a phone. Is it Apple or Samsung?
Yeah, Apple.
Apple. No shout outs, no advertisement, not sponsored by Apple, right? Who designed Apple? The company, right?
I know you're what you're going to say.
All right, good. But take me through it anyway, right? Apple designed Apple, right? The company Apple, right? Steve Jobs, take it back, and whatever scientists or engineers that he had, right? Now, if somebody gets an Apple and they say, we made this to be a phone. We made this for you to communicate, to have apps. That was the design. That's what the creator said. And you say, you know what? I don't think we can say that. I think this is whatever it wants to be. This is an ashtray. I put cigarettes out on it. That's the purpose of an Apple phone. But you're wrong. Because the one that designed it is telling you that's meant to be a phone. So our creator is telling you what the purpose of your life is.
Yeah. I think that's the difference between human and objects.
Good.
Isn't it? Because objects have functionality. For a chair, we sit on it.
And
for
humans
a car,
do
we
as
drive
well.
it.
Right? Like think about
I
this,
think
right?
that's the difference between objects and human is we give ourselves meaning, and
Right.
for humans we give other objects meanings as well.
So
that's
now
the difference,
think
right?
back to what you said, right? An object would not think that. If it had AI, it would not think that. But because you created that object, you gave it functionality, you said that object should do that.
Yeah, I agree on that.
Right? Now let's take that up a notch, right? Now, as the object itself doesn't think that, but because you're the creator, you actually know better. You made that chair, so you know it should be a chair. If that chair developed AI and said, I don't want to be a chair, I'm a swimmer. But it's not. You made it, right? Now just take that up a notch, right? Meaning the creator that created us gave us objective, gave us functionality, gave us purpose, and then we as the chair say, no, I'm not a chair, I'm a swimming club, right? But that's our fault. That's why you got people walking around thinking, I'm a cat, right? We got people in America, furries. They think they're animals, but they're not. Like, they may have this idea, but the creator didn't make them a cat, right? You made the chair, so you know the functionality of the chair. The chair may not realize that, but that's why you give it that functionality. That's why you give a user manual. But Allah created you, and He gave you functionality. So now for you to be like, no, I'm gonna come with my own, isn't right. Not any more right than the chair thinking that it's not a chair, right? Now, when that creator that we already agreed is there, when that God is there, is telling you, Ryan, you were created for a purpose, and I'll tell you why I created you. And you know you didn't create yourselves. So isn't it just logical that we say, okay, I submit, I'm a Muslim, I submit to my creator's purpose. That makes sense?
I think what you say is, so we went from the chair and a human level,
Right.
and then we move it on about.
Excellent.
Which now you consider human as the created object.
As a creation, exactly.
As the created object
Right.
of the God.
Exactly.
But we have ideas
Intelligence.
Intelligence, yes.
Okay.
And you then referred it to artificial intelligence of a chair,
Excellent.
and which I don't really agree on.
Why not?
But put this aside first. You mentioned about the spectrum earlier.
Okay.
Remember, you said some people think on a certain matter, like in the left-hand side, and some on a
Right.
opposite side of a
Right.
spectrum.
Right.
I don't see a problem of that.
Right.
Because you said the main purpose or the main objective is to have a divine meaning on certain
Okay.
things, right?
Sure.
And then you mentioned about murdering and
Right.
kind of stuff,
But see, I'll tell you where the problem is on the spectrum, right?
Okay.
Let's say you're on the side of the spectrum that you think abortion is perfectly fine, even in the 9 months of pregnancy, for no reason, right? That's their right. It's her body, and the other spectrum believes that's murder, right? So now either this spectrum is going to want to kill abortion doctors, saying they're murderers, or that spectrum is going to kill these people saying you're murderers. You see, it's not okay because those both can't exist. And that's why in our society we see this. In America, we have abortion clinics that get bombed by the right-wing people, right? And you see what I'm saying? So that's why we need that divine guidance. Now, let's take it back to AI, because you said you don't agree with that example. This phone has AI right now, right? There are things that I can tell it. I'll give you an example. When I'm close to my mom's house, it automatically tells me, you're close to your mom's house, do you want to visit your mom? Like, I didn't say that. It figured it out. We know today, Elon Musk and others are working on AI robots, right? They have a purpose. For example, if we develop an AI bot to help us manage airlines, which we're doing as a society, we have AI bots that are going to do flight patterns. That's what we created it for. And that AI bot, instead of doing the flight patterns, decides that it wants to draw flowers, right? What's going to happen? Planes are going to crash.
Yeah.
And then we will say to that AI bot, look, we programmed you for this purpose.
Okay. Yeah.
You see?
But let's
that
go
makes
back to
sense,
the
though.
Yeah. It
All right,
makes sense.
good.
Let's go
All right,
back to
good.
the spectrum.
So if that
And
makes sense, you're taking shahada, because earlier you said that if I answer, but go back to spectrum.
Let's go back to the spectrum.
I got you.
From your perspective, or from the Muslim perspective, there's a one divine truth or one
Yes,
divine answer, right?
100%.
But in our society,
Yes.
in a whole,
Yes.
Muslim is a part of it,
A minority.
a minority part of
Sure.
it. And what it means is, for the Muslim population, it is still within the spectrum. Like
We are.
among all of them.
Agreed.
And it won't be a day where it can be, but at
There
least
will
for
be.
the moment, there will be. And at least for this moment, we are still in the spectrum.
We are.
And the one that arguing pro-Muslim and anti-Muslim
Right?
is still having the killing,
Debate. Killings going back. Yeah, I
that,
agree.
that you have
I
said.
agree.
And it is not of a divine,
Objective.
yeah, that you think it would be, because I think still in a society in a whole, it's still within a certain area of the spectrum.
So let me answer that. Like, for example, in Mecca, the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, he began his da'wah, right? He was a minority. It was him and a few of his companions. And the majority was idol worshippers, right? So there was some conflict, right? Now, in Mecca, he had to go to Medina. In Medina, once again, the majority were in conflict with the minority. But then, with da'wah, as what we're doing today, right? With people understanding their purpose, with people coming back to their purpose, all of Mecca became Muslim. All of Medina became Muslim. All of the Arabian Peninsula became Muslim. Today, if you go to Mecca, there's no dispute on right and wrong, left and right, right? Because everybody came back to their purpose. Like that, Islam spread around the world. Now there is from China to America to South America to Russia, they're Muslims, right? Now, we don't go to a society and tell society, you have to change right away. Like, we don't go and force our religion on anybody. But we communicate with people, we educate people, like we're doing right now, and we bring solutions to the communities. And that's why many banking systems around the world now are looking at an Islamic banking model, because they realize it would do away with the bubbles that they see in the housing industries, right? Many people around the world are looking, I'll give you a very easy example. Remember coronavirus, right? When the coronavirus hit, I worked in the med device industry, so I was in a presentation. They said, how can we stop the coronavirus? They said, the first thing we have to do, we have to get people to wash their hands, right? More than shaking hands, more than gloves, more than masks, washing the hands stops the virus more than anything else. I said, you know, as Muslims, we wash our hands 5 times a day, at minimum, with wudu, right? Then on top of that, they said, look, many of the viruses and bacteria, they get stuck in the nose hairs, right? Because the nose hairs are there to catch bacteria. So if people were to wash out their nose hairs, if that bacteria doesn't go in, they'll be safe from so many diseases. I said, as Muslims, we make wudu, we take that water, we take it out. You see what I'm saying? So as Muslims, we have solutions to these problems. If you talk about the breakdown of the family structure in the West today, right? We have solutions. The breakdown of not having enough children to sustain your society, we have solutions. The breakdown of riba and banking and the oppression that goes on, we have solutions, right? So as we bring forth those solutions peacefully, then all these problems start to go away, right? But that's the point now. Today, me and you, Ryan, have to go and educate people. That look, you're not just here to do whatever you want, you have a purpose. today in the West especially, people have forgotten that they have purpose. People think, a boy thinks he's a girl and a girl thinks he's a monkey and a monkey thinks they're a dog. And that's why you see a breakdown in society. That's why you see a breakdown in the family structure. So it's our job now to peacefully educate them, right? And as education grows, the peace grows. You see what I'm saying? Like today, Western powers, they manipulate other countries. Like Africa is misused by Europe for resources, right? It was colonized. Why? Because they don't have that moral code. They don't care if they go and kill and massacre a people as long as they get that oil, right? But we as peaceful Muslims have to go educate them and say, no, that's wrong. You see what I'm saying? So that will fix that spectrum problem.
But
Yes?
you want to get there?
We're there already. I just want to get you across the line.
There's still some fundamental conflicts between me and religion because.
No, forget religion. Talk about Islam.
Yeah, yeah.
What conflict is there between you and Islam?
For example, if,
Good.
For Islam, I need to accept all of the Islam.
Of course. But think about it, right? I'll give you an easy solution before, and I'll go through anything you have. We agreed there's a God. And we agreed that God created us. And now we have agreed that God gave us purpose, right? If that God created us and gave us certain laws to live by, then wouldn't God know better how we should live, or we know better? Right? For example, alcohol. Do you think people should drink?
Personally, I don't drink alcohol.
There you go. There you go. You're already there, bro. Okay.
Personally, I don't drink
Good.
alcohol.
But do you think people should drink alcohol?
I don't know. The thing is, I personally don't drink alcohol because that's coming from my framework and my
Good.
experience and my thinking.
Good.
It doesn't mean I will have any opinion on other drinking.
Okay, so let's talk about that. If somebody
just as like for gay people,
Yeah.
or transgender people,
Right.
I am not a transgender people
Okay.
or a gay people, but I don't see a reason or why to object them.
I got you. I'll give you the reason, right? Now, first thing, let's take it to alcohol. We know the number one killer in America, for example, I don't know about the UK, is drunk driving, right? People get drunk, they don't think they're drunk, they get behind a car, they crash, they kill people, right? And that's why driving drunk is illegal, right? It's not a choice, right? Right?
It's not a choice because it's because it
Harms society.
It harms the society and it touches the morality that we've spoken just now.
Excellent. So when you realize that it touches the morality, then to forbid others from doing it, nothing wrong with that, right?
But it's the action of drunk driving that is wrong. And
Excellent.
That's defying morality,
Excellent.
but not
Excellent.
the
I got
beverage
you.
itself, right?
Okay, so let's take it back, right? Drunk driving is wrong, right?
Yeah.
And forbidding that is good, right?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So now, when somebody gets drunk and they feel that they're not drunk enough to not drive, how do we explain to them you're too drunk? Every drunk driver thinks they can drive, right? I had friends that were so drunk they were like falling and give me my keys. They're like, bro, you're too drunk to drive. No, man, I got this, right? So that means people don't know. Till today, even though drunk driving is a crime in the United Kingdom, in the United States, a large number of people, the number one killer in America, drunk driving. People still get behind that wheel, right? And they still, now that's one aspect. Drunk fights, your pubs and bars and hooligans that get drunk and crack somebody's head open, right? So you look at the harm in society, the moral decay, the moral problems that come out of drunk, child molestation, family abuse, spousal abuse from drunk people. With looking at all of that, what's the benefit of drinking? You see what I'm saying? So when there is no benefit,
I see your point, and
Good.
I think that's the
that's
a critical point where I don't agree on any religion or Islam. I think you're reducing humanity to a level that we can't control ourselves, or we don't.
Wait. I'm not. We are, right? As humans, we prove every day that we can't control our desires. As humans, there's rape every day. In America, every 11 seconds there's a rape, right? If humans were so developed and so capable to control ourselves, that wouldn't be the case. As humans, there's drunk driving and murders from drunk accidents and people purposely murdering people while being drunk every single minute around the world. every single minute. So that's not me taking humanity to that. That's humanity proving that they need guidance. They need moral codes, right? And we agreed to that the morality is needed. So when that morality from God teaches us that humans, you shouldn't drink, right? I created you, God is telling us, and I know what's better and worse for you, and drinking, the harms in it outweigh the good, don't do it, right? So then wouldn't it just be logical, human basic logic, that you say, yeah, we see nothing but evil coming out of alcohol, we don't see any benefit to society. If our creator said don't drink, right?
But the beverage itself,
Right.
I say I didn't drink, I don't drink, but for me, the beverage itself isn't the problem. Like, for example,
Right.
for knife,
Okay.
you use knives, right? Knives kills people.
Right.
You wouldn't say it's the knife is the problem,
Okay.
but the one that using the knife is the problem, right?
I agree.
And it is the action of killing someone is the problem, rather
Agreed.
than the knife, right?
Agreed.
And if there's like a bottle of alcohol right in front
Okay.
of you here, and it itself doesn't have anything to do with
Agreed.
humans, and
It's the drinking part, right?
even drinking doesn't matter if you don't have any corresponding actions after drinking, right?
Okay, so let me ask you this. Just think of what you just said, okay? Can I, here in the United Kingdom, can I walk around with a machete on me?
Machete,
A big knife?
I don't think so, no.
Why not?
I don't know. I
No, no.
don't know if it's
Okay,
legal or not.
who's here from the UK?
Yeah, it's illegal. It's illegal.
It's illegal.
Yeah.
Is it illegal? Okay,
Okay.
from
Let's
what
say-
you know, can I walk around with an AR-15, a machine gun? Why not?
Because it's a potential harm to others.
A what harm?
A potential harm.
A potential harm. But why? But if I don't shoot somebody, why can't I walk around with the AR? The AR is not the problem; it's the shooting.
Because it's not necessary to carry it around.
Why is it necessary to drink alcohol? Isn't there a potential harm from it?
There is potential harm from it. But
More people die from alcohol than AR-15s.
yes, but
So again, just like you said, there's no reason to walk around with the AR, which I may disagree. I'm from America, but anyway, right? Then why is there a reason for alcohol? If there's potential harm from an AR-15, there's definitely potential harm from alcohol. Otherwise, the exact scenario that you use, that okay, if alcohol is sitting there, it's not a problem, it's not the drinking that's a problem, it's the action that might come from it, then the same thing for a gun. It's not the gun that kills people, not the gun that's a problem, it's when I point at somebody and pull a trigger, that's when it's a problem. But you ban the guns, you don't walk around with ARs, you don't even walk around with knives because you say there's a potential harm. Well, alcohol has a greater potential harm than guns.
But you have to take into the context of the social norm, right? Like you said in the US and
Sure.
UK. If no one in the UK have the social norm of having a gun
Well, why is that?
or in possess of a gun,
Well, why is that?
Because
There,
that's
there used
the
to be
law,
guns
right?
here. Why did they pass that law?
that's a difference in culture, and that's
No,
the
no, it's
spectrum,
not.
right?
It's not because there is a legal reason, not because it's not cultural here. There was a time in the United Kingdom people used to have guns. The old lords used to walk around with their little guns and double-barrel shotguns in their stagecoaches. You look at the old films of the United Kingdom. People had swords. They used to walk around with guns, but then they banned them because of potential harm, as you said, right?
Yes.
Even in America, usually you cannot walk around with the AR-15 anymore, right? Why? Because there's potential harm. I get it. But why is it when less people are killed with the AR-15, but the government decides to ban that, when more people die from alcohol and you don't think of the potential harm from that? See, the exact same mind system process that you used to explain to me why I can't walk around with a machete or an AR-15, use the exact same logic for alcohol,
But
and you
using-
will realize.
using the same logic within
Okay.
like cars or
Excellent. Is there
because
a
car is a
benefit?
potential harm.
Is there a benefit to driving a car?
Yes, there is. But is there
Okay.
a potential benefit for drinking alcohol?
None. Name me one.
I mean, everyone.
Yeah,
Me myself don't.
No, no,
drink,
no. I'm
but
not
there's
saying
so
you.
Many people that
But there are people that do crack. There are people that do heroin. There are people that kill people. That's not the point. The point is, what is the benefit in drinking alcohol? A car gets. If I don't have a car, how am I going to get to Birmingham tonight? It's not a long walk, right? Right. So there's a point to a car, right? What is the point to getting drunk or drinking alcohol? There's no health benefit. In fact, there are harms. Kills your kidney, causes heart disease. Even small amounts of alcohol, as recently published in peer-reviewed medical journals, will cause cancer, will cause heart problems. There's no benefit in it. So, as a society, there's more benefits to having an AR-15. Maybe you could hunt with it or kill an animal that's about to kill you than there is for alcohol. Right? That's why, my friend Ryan, think through this. The Creator knew better. The Creator knew better of the harms and the potential harms, so He said, don't do it. So we don't do it. Make sense? Right? Now, I'll give you a smaller example just to finish this, right? The government makes laws. Do you follow the law?
Yeah.
Why? Why don't you make your own laws?
Brother Sammy Khan, we're not scared.
Because-
Come and say salam to us. None of us are scared.
That's a
so come and
social
say salam.
contract. Because
Okay, who made that social contract?
social contract is not made by anyone. Like there's someone writing the laws itself. But
Right, but
social
you,
contract is for the
as
people.
Ryan, why do you follow the government's laws?
Because I believe that having a law itself, no matter if I agree or not, is
Okay.
a benefit to the whole of humanity.
Excellent. So do you not think in that way divine laws from God have a benefit to humanity? A morality that we agreed that it does? Right? You already agreed the morality of religion, of Islam, is something beneficial, right? So that means a part of that morality is what God tells you to do and not to do. Right?
Some part of
Just
some part of it is not about morality, is it?
right? Of
It's-
course it
it's
is.
about
All of it is.
preferences.
All of it's morality. Alcohol is about morality. Drunk driving, abuse, sexual abuse, all of that happens, addiction, that's all morality, right? Murder, Allah says don't kill, don't steal, that's all morality, right? That's not about preferences, right? And Allah is our creator, and me and you already agreed the creator would know morality better than us.
How is like gay people morality?
Excellent question. Now, first thing, let's take it back to biology. I'll get to the morality of it, right? Now, when you look at the human anatomy, and I don't want to get too explicit, but stay with me, right? Nature has a way for a male and a female to come together and produce children. And that way is made easy through certain, and I don't want to get too explicit here, but certain lubrication that naturally occurs in one of the private parts and so on. You don't have that in homosexuality. Meaning, if you use the homosexual method, you don't produce babies. You don't produce the natural outcome that's supposed to come from reproduction and sexual activity. So that tells you from anatomy and biology, this is not a natural way, right? It does not help society. In fact, it puts society in danger. Why? For any society to function, you need 2.3 babies per 2 people. A little bit more because babies die, right? To be able to function, to keep society. Now, in societies like France right now, where homosexuality has become very common, and because homosexuals cannot produce children, society is starting to collapse. That's why they're depending on immigration. Even though they hate the immigrants, it's the immigrants from North Africa that run the society because they're the ones that do all the hard work for the old retired gay couples that don't have kids. So in reality, if humanity went majority homosexual, we would collapse as a society. As a humanity, we would not be able to sustain ourselves. The older people would be way too many for the younger, few heterosexually born children, right? Every gay person was born through heterosexuality, right? They weren't born through homosexuality, right? So every gay person wouldn't exist if it wasn't for the fact their parents were heterosexual.
Imagine an island.
Right? So imagine an island, there's 100 people, all gay. Will there be another generation? Society would cease to exist. The core function of any species, bees, spiders, and humans alike, is to reproduce and continue the species. That would end if homosexuality became prevalent on the earth. Birds and bees.
I think that's a very
real example. I gave you
a very slippery slope example.
It
because
is, and we don't want to go down that slippery slope. We want to stay on that straight path. Look at France today.
Look at France.
Yeah.
But in many other developed countries, like in the East Asia, where
Name it.
homosexual is
Name
not,
a country.
like
Japan.
South Korea, Japan, Hong Kong,
Both
China.
South Korea, Japan, both countries where you have the exact same problem, where the society has unable to produce enough children. And right now, Japan and South Korea, beautiful examples you gave, is inviting immigrants even from Africa, even with their racism, because they need people to function. Go look up Japan. Honestly, go look it up at home, that their model has made it that they're unsustainable right now.
Yes.
The Japanese cannot function without heterosexuals from other countries that had babies, bringing them in to keep them going,
Yes, but that.
right?
But in the Japan
China
and South
as
Korea-
well, by the way.
Yeah, Japan, South Korea, and China. These are not countries that are known for homosexuals.
Well, it is. I mean, amongst the East Asian countries, there are more homosexuals in these countries than there are like Indonesia, Malaysia, and the Muslim majority countries out there. That's where the workers are coming because the heterosexuality
Then
there,
when you
right?
say about like France
Yes.
having not enough babies,
Yes.
because
That is one of the factors, of course.
one of the factors. but
Yes.
you
And the
can't,
other
like,
factors are all anti-Islamic factors as well. Casual sex without wanting to have children, not wanting to get married because you don't want to leave your lifestyle of partying, right? Everything that Islam would fix. Name a Muslim country facing the same problem.
I don't have knowledge for that.
Sing, zero. Not a single Muslim country in the world has the problem that we can't sustain ourselves because nobody's having kids, right? Why? Because Islam is a solution, right? Now, if it wasn't for Western countries causing wars and Muslim countries, we wouldn't even have this immigration issues. But as countries go for themselves, Muslim countries where they have a natural lifestyle, not as much homosexuality or self-indulgence of desires, we don't have these problems because Islam is the solution. Now, if you brought Islam to Japan, if people in Japan said, you know what, instead of being gay and instead of just living up our worldly desires, we're going to live a family-focused life, we're going to have kids, we're going to have a morality that stops us from committing suicide every time the stock market crashes, you wouldn't have that problem anymore, right? Makes sense, right?
But you still haven't mentioned how homosexual. You mentioned about biologically and economically,
Okay.
and from a social perspective. How
From a
does,
societal harm perspective. What
how
more
does
do you
that
need?
bring to morality then?
Okay, morality. What is morality? What do we see as right and wrong? We agreed earlier that for us to have a morality, we need divine laws. You said the good thing about religion is to give us morality. So when the Creator tells us that this lifestyle is wrong, this will harm your society, this will harm your family, right? Then that means we need to then follow the divine objective morality, right? Just like murder. Why is murder wrong? You would agree morally it's incorrect, right? But if somebody who's a professional hitman thinks, no, it's fine, that's not subjective. We go back to the divine morality that tells us it's wrong. Divine morality tells us homosexuality is wrong, right? Every scripture, whether you go to the Old Testament, Leviticus, New Testament, Romans, the Quran, story of Lut alayhi salam, and so on, tells us homosexuality is immoral.
I can't agree on that.
Why not?
I think that's not linked to morality in my perspective.
But hold on.
It's a preference, and
We agreed that things that cause societal harm are bad for society, right? Like you said about guns that has potential harm, right? Guns could kill few people, but it's not going to stop society from existing. Homosexuality, as I just explained, if it becomes prevalent, if it's unchecked, could end humanity as we know it. You don't think that's wrong?
I think ending humanity and
But we're actually seeing it. We're seeing countries where homosexuality is prevalent having fewer babies because homosexuals can't have children unless they adopt from a heterosexual, right? Seeing that their societies are crumbling, and the only reason they exist still is because they're bringing immigrants from heterosexual societies to carry on the work, right? France, Japan, South Korea, you gave the examples yourself. So don't you think an action that is a threat to the existence of humanity is immoral? It makes sense, doesn't it, Ryan? It does.
I think the 2 points still can't convince me because it's a factor that is making France and Japan, which is very
It's making what?
demographically France and Japan, which
Okay.
are two countries very demographically different in terms
How?
of gender.
Oh. I mean, in France, there is a large number of homosexuality.
Yes.
In Japan, there's actually, amongst Asian countries, a very large number of homosexuals, right? A country that has pride parades and all of that, right? Now, let's take any country you want that has a large homosexual population and compare it to any country, Islamic, that doesn't have it. Pick two countries. Let's take Denmark. All right? Denmark, for example, and let's take Saudi Arabia, right? Good, or you want to pick another country?
No.
Okay.
I don't have the data knowledge to.
All right, so I mean, just so you know, in Denmark, for example, where homosexuality is very open and common and encouraged and all of that, you're seeing where there's no workforce. And right now in Denmark, I've been there, if you go to a factory, it's all Moroccans, Algerians working there, right? So their society, if it wasn't for immigrants from Muslim countries, would collapse. On the other hand, in Saudi Arabia, they have more kids than they know what to do with, right? Society is functioning and flourishing, right? In the UAE or in Qatar and all these countries, Muslim countries, they have kids. They're not dependent. They're not destroying, even though they're growing their societies, right? They have people come work in their countries, but they don't need it, right? So if we look at these clear examples, we see in front of our eyes a harm to society that would come from homosexuality becoming prevalent. If tomorrow, more than 50% of Denmark became gay, right? If people didn't stop it, and you didn't get heterosexuals to come and work for you or their children, that society would collapse. You would have old people sitting in the streets not being able to eat because there's nobody out there working to feed them. You don't see that as an evil? Come on, Ryan, you know you see it.
It's a factor, but you
What-
have to
what's the
admit
other
it's a very
factor?
minor factor, and that's
I would disagree. And that's why I said, give me any example.
because
Any country would.
economically and socially,
Okay. Economically, Denmark's strong, right?
economically and socially has
Okay.
to be the fundamental reason why the demographic changes in Japan.
Absolutely not. Because there are countries that are economically stronger than Japan. For example, Qatar. Qatar has a higher GDP than Japan per capita. You know what GDP, right? Qatar has a higher GDP than Japan. But Qatar doesn't have that problem. Why?
Because it hasn't entered a steady state yet.
It hasn't entered a steady state? When was the last time Qatar had a war or a revolution? It's been steady since its creation.
No, steady state in terms of economically.
It has been steady for, at least 100 years now that I know of. Qatar has not had a revolution, has a strong economy.
Do you agree Qatar is still having like a exponential growth in per capita income, right?
Not really. It's been steady since the oil production began, which is, pretty close to when Japan started to rebuild itself, right? Because Japan had been destroyed after World War II anyway. So in the 60s and 70s when it started to rebuild, Qatar found oil at that time, and since then it has had steady growth and it has had, good level of income. From the last 10, 15 years that I have checked, they've had the highest GDP of any country in the world per capita, per Qatari citizen, right? But they don't have that problem that Japan has. Why? Homosexuality is not there. It's facts, son.
He knows his facts.
You know them facts. Ryan, let's take it back. Me and you agreed that there is a need for morality from divine guidance. Right? We agreed to that, right? And if that morality from the Creator, from the divine guidance tells us that homosexuality is wrong, then how can we challenge the Creator? Do we know better, or does the Creator know better? Does the iPhone know better, or does the Apple factory know better?
Just take the iPhone as an example.
Good.
Apple giving you an iPhone, and
Yes.
they have a press conference every year
Yeah.
telling you how to use an iPhone.
Excellent.
And ultimately, you can decide how to use your iPhone, right?
Okay.
And,
So hold on. Let me take it there. Apple tells me how to use the iPhone. Let's say I take this iPhone and I decide I want to microwave it. Right? Apple tells me don't do that, but I decide I do. What will happen to my iPhone?
Explodes. Yeah. And
Exactly.
and that
Exactly.
correlates to what we said about
Divine guidance. If we don't follow that divine guidance, we have the choice, but then we explode. We destroy ourselves. Is that what we want? Do we want the iPhone to explode?
But you have many other ways than putting it into a microwave other than.
I agree.
using an
There
iPhone.
are many
That
other
is not
ways.
exploding, right?
But there are many other ways you can destroy your iPhone. Why does Apple have a conference and tell you how to use the phone? Because it knows better. If you don't follow the guidance Apple gives you, then you destroy your phone. Whether you take it too deep into the water, whether you put it in a microwave, whether you put your drink on it and decide to do a dance on it, whether you throw it off a building, whatever you do, if you leave the guidance from the manufacturer, you're going to destroy your phone. Otherwise, why would Apple even tell you how to use it?
But do you agree that you use iPhone different to the way that I use my iPhone?
Both of us use them, well, no, pretty much we both make calls and use apps, right? We don't really use them differently, but both of us use them within the constraints of what the manufacturer iPhone has told us to do. And if we don't, if we don't, then one of us is going to lose the phone, right? Meaning within the, like for example, me and this brother, we live different lives, right? But both of us as Muslims, we live within the constraints of what the divine guidance is given. So within the constraints of what Apple tells you, you use your iPhone differently, I may use mine differently, right? But in the end, you're making calls using apps, I'm making calls using apps. You may use different apps, I may use different apps. But if you decide that Apple doesn't know better, I'm going to figure out for myself, and you decide I'm going to put this under the train and see how it does under a train, you're not going to have a phone. That makes sense to you, Ryan? That's it, bro. Now, let's take it back. Simple. One creator.
Okay, no.
right.
Let's use the iPhone as an example because I think it's a good example.
All right.
Let's say one day if Apple decided to take an app out of the App Store.
Yeah.
Like let's say Facebook.
Okay.
They don't want Facebook on App Store anymore.
Why?
I don't know. Like just for example.
Okay.
And which means like Islam telling us there's some constraints and this is something that you shouldn't do in
Okay.
your life. And I decided that I really need Facebook. And
Okay.
I think Facebook is good for me and good for the society in general.
Okay.
I will then choose to move from iPhone to Android.
Samsung.
right?
Okay, good. Good. If there were two creators, that example would make sense. But there's only one creator. Right? So that parallel doesn't make sense. Because we cannot choose not to be created by Allah. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? And a better example of that would be is that if Apple decides that Facebook has a virus and it's going to destroy the phone, and you decide, I don't agree with Apple, can you make this Apple phone into a Samsung?
No.
Just like that, your creator is Allah, and you cannot change to another creation. You are who you are. This is an Apple phone. You can't make it a Samsung. You get it? Right? Now, if there's a virus on Facebook and it's harming the phone and Apple blocks it, it's better for you to follow their guidance. Right? Just like the harms of alcohol and homosexuality and all that stuff we talked about, or murder or thievery, that Allah knows better that it's wrong, so the best thing is to follow the guidance.
I think.
Come on, you know that makes sense, Ryan.
I think it makes sense, but
Good.
I think the beauty of humanity to me is that we can get to choose. Even I want to put it into a microwave, which
Okay.
means like you said about the demographics of Japan or France exploding,
Okay.
and humanity no longer exists. If we as humans decided to put our iPhone into the microwave
And
we
destroy
get the
ourselves.
option to choose it.
Right?
We still get the option and we can do this.
If you think that's beautiful, right, Ryan, then think if you decide the beauty of humanity is I'm going to detonate a nuclear bomb and destroy the world. Should we allow you to do that?
No.
Why not? That's the beauty of humanity. We can put ourselves in a microwave.
No, because you're harming others like life.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Just like that alcohol harms others. When you think you're not drunk and get in a car and hit somebody, when you get drunk and don't realize it and rape a woman, you're harming others. When you go homosexual and you're not helping humanity exist and you're still depending on heterosexuals to bring babies, to keep feeding you when you're old, you're harming others. And our Creator, knowing that harm, made those things forbidden for us. That makes sense, doesn't it? It does. Just like you wouldn't think it's from the beauty of humanity to nuke the world because we can choose it, I don't think it's from the beauty of humanity that we follow lifestyles that destroy humanity. Ryan, let's do this, man. You've been through it. You know it makes sense. The only thing is, the devil is telling you, don't do it. Why? Because he knows you'll come back to your purpose. You know your purpose wasn't designed by you, but by your Creator. We've already gone through morality. We've already gone through the harms that come out of things that Allah has made haram for us, right? You already don't drink, you're not gay, you're good, right? Now, the first step is you testify, you say, you know what? I don't think anything else should be worshipped. I don't think birds and monkeys should be worshipped because the Creator above made us. That makes sense, right? We already agreed that makes sense. We're not going backwards, right? The one Creator should be worshipped because He's the one that made us, right? Okay. Well, we already agreed to that one. You believe there's a God, right?
I don't think I can make that commitment.
Why not? What's holding you back?
I still feel I'm very not knowledge enough to like.
Do you
have
think
such
you
a
need
commitment.
you need a PhD to know there's one God?
Well, I think that's a very great commitment, and it's not in an hour talk that
Well,
I
why
can
not?
make.
Why not? If I've answered your questions, which I have, it's on live, and if I've given you those ideas that you have agreed to now, why not take a step and then you keep asking questions, you keep learning, you got the rest of your life ahead of you, right? You're an intelligent young man, come to the mosque, we got scholars, you can sit, you can ask all your questions. But if you know something to be right, you feel it, you heard it, why not take a step?
I think it's not so responsible to, if I have not figured it out or have a really deep thought of the things or the questions that I might have,
Okay.
and commit to it right now, right?
But
I can
think-
always come like next week.
Okay, you're in Nottingham?
Yeah, I'm based here.
Okay, I'll give you the address to the mosque. I'll introduce you to the brothers.
I imagine
You know him? All right,
study
cool.
at the same university.
Excellent. Think about it. Go home. Pray to the one Creator. Say, guide me to the truth. If what we talked about today is the truth, guide me. And inshallah, you'll be Muslim next week.
Thank you.
Great talking to you, Ryan. Appreciate your time.